California Governor Gavin Newsom, he is touting a 9% reduction in homelessness in the state of California. Are the numbers just being Mickey Moused with here? What do we got going on? Is this just more rhetoric that he can throw out to the potential voters for 2028 presidential election? Yeah, probably. What's the real deal? Let's get into it. Here we go.
Focused on reforms, including in our mental health and homeless space. And I want to just acknowledge, when I got here, we had no homeless plan. We had no housing plan. We had no mental health plan. There's no accountability.
Keep in mind, so this is the last State of the Union, State of the State address in California that Gavin Newsom will be doing. And keep in mind that since 2019, when Gavin Newsom came into office, homelessness in the state of California exploded. It's gone up 34% since he came into office. So keep that in mind. So if you have one of these big up runs and then you got a little bit of a down run that we're going to get into because it's specifically related to Los Angeles, you're cherry picking data.
There was little investment, not a knock. It just wasn't the focus, the priority of Sacramento. It was the responsibility of cities and counties. I know this intimately as a former mayor. When I was mayor, I never thought about calling Arnold Schwarzenegger and say, what the hell are you doing on homelessness? Wasn't even in my consciousness. It was responsibility exclusively of cities and counties. That has fundamentally changed. We crafted new statewide programs. Just think about this. Don't forget about it. You funded Home Key. You funded Project Room Key.
Don't forget about the fact that you spent $24 billion and you can't really work out where it went. And these homeless count numbers, they are inaccurate. They are known to be inaccurate. So you've got bad data on top of cherry picking, on top of the real picture, which is homelessness has gone up significantly under Gavin Newsom. Period. End of story. But because he's going to try and run for president in 2028, he needs to be able to, kind of smooth over some of these buyer objections, which is homelessness was a train wreck in California throughout Gavin Newsom's tenure as governor. Period. Now that he's got maybe a little bit of a decline at the end, doesn't offset all the negative stuff that happened, doesn't offset all the data that we know to be true.
Together, taking quite literally, PolitiFact, this 72,000 people off the streets by converting hotels and motels and other properties into long-term housing. And by the way,
how many billions did you spend on that? Because other Republican-run states, they're not doing that. And what's happening? Well, they're going to California, literally, with an aching in my heart. They're going to Oregon. They're going to Seattle. They're going to Washington State. Because if you build it, they will come. California has done that. Now your constituents are stuck with the tax burden of continuously just providing a lifestyle for these people to do their drugs.
We're seeing results. Early data just compiled. You may have seen this. We just released it. Early data shows, and this is the important number, unsheltered homeless, that the number of unsheltered homeless in California dropped almost double digits, 9% last year in 2025. It dropped in the state of California. First time in over a decade and a half that we can lay claim to that. LA down 10.3%, Riverside down 19%, Contra Costa County down 34.8%. And I'll remind folks, you think this is unique to California. Overall homelessness in the United States of America went up 18.13% last year. California, 2025, unsheltered homeless, 9% reduction. First time in almost 2 decades.
Do you believe it? I would say, hey, let's take a walk through Skid Row and let's see what things look like. Let's see how many of those entire blocks have been cleaned up. Should be about 1 out of 10, right? Should be about 1 out of 10. Hey, what's going on here? It's a numbers game, and he's got to use this data to back his run for the, president of the United States, because he's got so many things that go against him that are buyer objections. And I keep using that term because I'm a real estate guy. And that's what you talk about is, your house has, say it's only got a 1-car garage and everything else got a 2-car garage. You got to be able to overcome that. All right. Maybe does it have an extra parking space outside? You got to have some buyer objections, the ability to overcome them. And that's what Gavin Newsom is doing. He is collecting data points so that he can talk. You're going to hear this. We had a 9% reduction when I left office. And you're like, yeah, but what do the streets look like? What does the homelessness issue in Venice Beach look like? What's it look like, in downtown LA? What does it look like in Echo Park? What does it, just go through that. Is it substantially different? No. Has it gotten worse since he came into office? Yes. That's difficult to overcome. This article is Newsom says California homelessness is declining. Here's what the data shows. California saw a 9% drop in unsheltered homelessness last year. Unsheltered homelessness would be people living on the streets, right? People living on the streets, moving into shelter. So it's not a drop in homelessness per se in number of people. It's just where they move to. A shift Governor Gavin Newsom is touted as a sign of his successful leadership. He's got to hold on to his wins, right? But if you understand, this isn't necessarily a win, and the loss leading up to this was far greater than this 9% dip, or so-called dip. The number of people living on the streets or in vehicles remains significantly higher than when Newsom took office in 2019. We're seeing these investments pay off, Newsom said. We're seeing real progress. Newsom's focus on showing results illustrates the pressure he's under to prove his policies have helped address homelessness in the state, something voters will likely judge him on if he runs for president in 2028. Lack of affordability, housing prices, inflation, poverty, homelessness. Those are all, you can rattle those off, and there's about 25 more after that. Where, how about, refinery closures, cost of gasoline, cost of electricity. Now we get this cost of food. We can just keep on going, right? So Gavin Newsom's got to cherry pick what he can, whatever he's got thrown his way. That's a win. Newsom has not officially declared his candidacy, but he's conceded he's considering it. Oh, he's more than considering it. So you got Gavin Newsom versus Kamala Harris. I hope they both run. Because Kamala Harris, she will take votes away from Gavin Newsom, and I don't think Gavin Newsom is electable. Is AOC going to be a vice president for Gavin Newsom? Is Jasmine Crockett going to be vice president for Kamala Harris? Oh man, I would love to see those lineups. I mean, that's just let them talk. Republicans, just shut up and let them talk. Because they will just talk themselves right out of that election. Kamala Harris with her word salad, Gavin Newsom trying to do the spin game. The data Newsom cited, which covers most of California's homeless population and many of its most populous counties, shows that these are volunteers. This is not an accurate count, but it's what we have to go off of. Counted nearly 93,000 unsheltered homeless people in those jurisdictions in 2024. In 2025, that count dropped to about 84,000. But that's still 14% higher than in 2019 when he came into office. And it's one segment. And you know what? When you're going out and you are literally middle of the night going out there with a bunch of volunteer crew people, I think that's a homeless dude. I think they're I'm not sure. Do we tally that? No, don't. Wild. And these are always a wild underestimation because you can't, sleeping underneath the bridge, sleeping, just crazy spots, underground. I mean, if you had a true tally, I think these things are 50% higher than the numbers that they give. Numbers come from federally mandated point-in-time counts. Yeah, but we know how inaccurate those are. And there have been drops in homelessness. And one of the major homelessness, here's Gavin Newsom. California's homelessness plummeted in 2025? No, it didn't plummet. It went down a little bit, maybe. According to preliminary data, due to Governor Newsom's strategies to reduce homelessness, the last strategies I remember Gavin Newsom creating were him screaming at the individual cities, hey, you guys got to do your job. You guys got to help me out here. Help a brother out. You got to help me out because I'm never going to get elected president. I mean, that's saying the quiet part out loud. If you guys don't get your asses in gear and start cleaning up some of this homelessness, your cities look like crap. Yeah, he's saying that to these mayors who are just like completely overwhelmed with absolute nonsense of the homeless industrial complex. And you got $24 billion being spent and, it can't really account for it. The whole thing is just an absolute cluster, right? Newsom strains to flip script on California's failures. He's straining. They're literally calling him out. Well, I mean, kinda, you got that reduction. Maybe, kinda. Let's skip down here. Governor Newsom told Californians that homelessness is down, crime is at record lows, schools are improving, and Los Angeles is recovering after the Palisades fire, she said. Governor Newsom painted a picture of a California that exists in his imagination. Oh, you know what? If you're running for president and you're in a different state and you don't follow these topics, you might just, but Gavin Newsom said that, he reduced homelessness. Maybe he can do that in our state here. When you know damn well it's just, it's a spin. It's a spin game. Representative Kevin Kiley, a Republican representing parts of Sacramento in Congress, assailed the address as pure gaslighting. For once, Newsom is right, he said. California has led the nation during his tenure in homelessness, unemployment, poverty, illiteracy, gas prices, electricity costs, debt, and outmigration. That is the true state of our state. That's a little bit different than, hey, let's get excited about that 9% reduction in unsheltered homelessness. Okay, you on board? Yep. Kiley also provided a preview of the conservative line of attack that could haunt the governor leading into the 2028 presidential race. California also, of course, leads the nation in fraud. Maybe like $250 billion of fraud in California. Minnesota's fraud scandals have just ended Tim Walz's political career. California should likewise end Gavin Newsom's. The thing about Gavin Newsom in California, they have so much money sloshing around, whereas with Minnesota, much smaller economy. And I think what happened in Minnesota was just so outrageously out in the open. And those politicians, including Tim Walz, Tampon Tim, just basically said, shh, maybe nobody will notice that we're funneling billions of dollars to the Somalis who aren't really running daycares, who aren't really doing the food program. They're not really doing these transportation programs. Maybe nobody will notice. We just keep kicking them all this money. We build up 70, 80,000 Somalis in our state, and they're always going to vote Democrat. Going to buy the vote. They're rigging elections. It's not a bad plan. Unless you get caught, and then you got to step down. Tampon Tim. I can't focus on defending Minnesotans while this attack on my integrity is coming out. You could almost see him crying tears. You almost needed a tampon to, stop the flow. Is Gavin Newsom really turning the corner on homelessness? This is Politico. Here he is. Here's our guy out at one of his photo ops. Remember when he was tossing just a few things? He was doing this kind of number. A great photo op. I mean, it's he's doing something. Oh, he is single-handedly getting rid of homelessness. The numbers speak otherwise, don't they? Not a ton new in here, but Newsom announced a 9% drop in unsheltered homelessness during his State of the Union, pushing back on conservatives' portrayals of the state as a dystopia overridden by encampments and visible poverty. But that's the reality. So there's a bunch of people that they're having a conversation, and I'm going to cherry pick some data here. I'm going to cherry pick what I think is important for you to hear. White says, it's certainly, and the question is, Newsom and his team have been very eager to tout the number of homeless living dropped by 9.1%. Do you all see this as the impressive achievement he's making it out to be? It's certainly important for Newsom to be able to point to progress after he's put so much political capital into showing improvement on this issue. That includes allocating money and pushing local governments, like we just talked about, to do more. But let's not lose sight of the fact that the decrease comes after those numbers rose every year of Newsom's tenure. There were about 50,000 more people sleeping on the streets in 2024 as compared to 2019. 50,000 more people. So it's an improvement that comes after a lot of worsening. Think about that. 50,000 people. That's a drop in the bucket compared to 40 million in state of California? How many of you live in towns that don't have 50,000 people, right? So now take your entire township and replace it with homeless people and add a bunch to get to 50,000. That's been added to the state of California. And now he's talking about, we've got a drop in unsheltered homelessness. This is what he's got to do. He's got to do this kind of thing. But I think the smart money says, yeah, but what do your streets look like? Does it noticeably look better? No, it doesn't. It's just, this is politics, right? Crazy politics. And he's going to continually point to this factor. That's why I did the podcast today. Make sure you're subscribed, that notification bell. I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks again for joining. Bye for now.